On Tuesday night, the LA Clippers completed one of their classic comebacks without Kawhi Leonard and Paul George coming back from an 18-point deficit to win in Portland. How did they do it and how did they turn the game around? Gonna be talking about that and more on today's Locked On Comeback Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host in my 18th season as a Clipper fan, Darian Vaziri. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. And of course, to subscribe to my own YouTube channel for even more sports and Clipper content called Dime Dropper on YouTube. And remember to subscribe to Locked On Clippers on YouTube. It's the fastest way to grow the show. And make sure to comment on today's question. Was that the best win of the season thus far? You let me know, Clipper Nation. I think it's right up there with the Cavaliers one, maybe better, considering there was no Paul George and it was on the road. Now, in this game, there would be no Damian Lillard, there would be no Luke Kennard, there would be no Paul George or Kawhi Leonard. But as I mentioned in the last episode, you just know that the Clippers against the Damian Lillard-less Portland Trailblazers team have a chance to go into Portland and get the job done if they play their best. And I wouldn't even say the Clippers played their best, but I do think they played well. However, if I'm going to start talking about this game in which the Clippers won 118-112, outscoring the Portland Trailblazers 36-17 in the fourth quarter, and the man that ended up scoring even more points in the fourth quarter than the Portland Trailblazers did as a team was Norman Powell. The man has been on an absolute tear lately, and he was doing his normal thing in this game, scoring in double figures, making shots, going to the basket, getting to the foul line. But what he ended up doing in the fourth quarter was nothing short of spectacular. Now, if there's a little history here with Norman Powell and the Portland Trailblazers, of course, he was traded from Toronto to Portland for Gary Trent Jr. The Portland Trailblazers had him, and I'm pretty sure they're the ones that gave him the big contract. I'm going to have to double check that. But Norman Powell, I know for a fact he mentioned that he felt some type of way about Toronto, but I guarantee he feels some type of way about Portland because, he got traded. And I think he figured he was going to be part of a, long-term kind of thing over there in Portland, and it didn't actually end up materializing. They traded him for Justice Winslow and Eric Bledsoe and Keon Johnson. And Justice Winslow has been playing good basketball for them this season. And yes, on August 6, 2021, Norman Powell signed a new 5-year, $90 million contract with the Blazers. So for them to trade him not even a season into that contract was pretty surprising, and I think he probably was a little surprised by that. But man, oh man, he took it out on them last night. In the fourth quarter, he got to the rim at will, driving by anybody, whether it was one-on-one or in transition. I thought Reggie Jackson, he ended up getting 12 assists to show for it, but a couple of times there weren't even crazy assists that Reggie Jackson, drew two defenders and found an open man or anything like that. Some of them were just, he looked up the court, saw Norman Powell was a little bit open in space or ahead of him, and Norman Powell would drive to the basket into two defenders or by two defenders and score. When I say that, I don't mean to take anything away from Reggie, but it's kind of like not all assists are equal, you can say. He made a pass, and Norman Powell still has to do a little bit more work to get that shot. When you think of normal assists, you think of somebody creating a wide open shot or an easy shot for somebody, not somebody throws somebody the ball and they got to take 3 dribbles and get to the basket. Like I know one of his last assists, Reggie Jackson, was just Norman Powell getting the ball at the top of the key and going to the basket. But nothing to take away from Reggie Jackson. I'll get into his performance as the episode goes on because I thought he was really good as well, especially in a very crucial part of the game with the Portland Trailblazers. Almost went up by 20 points. But it's the Norman Powell show first and foremost. The way he was able to get to the basket in that fourth quarter, get to the foul line, which he got to 10 times in the game, made 8 of those free throws, and was even able to hit threes, 4 out of 5 from deep. But just to me, his relentlessness getting to the basket, that's really what stood out. And he caught fire. And I think he also played really solid defense as well, closing out well on certain shooters. I thought he was playing pretty good defense in terms of just being physical, staying strong, fighting over screens pretty well, and moving his feet pretty well as well. So Norman Powell, 32 points in the game. He scored more points in the fourth quarter with his 22 points than the Portland Trailblazers scored in the fourth quarter. They only scored 17 in the quarter. And it's also the most points by a Clipper player in the fourth quarter in the last 25 seasons. So shout out to Norman Powell. The guy has been absolutely unbelievable lately. During the broadcast, Kevin Harlan said that he's fourth right now in terms of bench scorers. And I guarantee you, not only did his average go up after that game, he is going to continue to climb up in that bench player PPG leaderboard as the season continues. He did have one of the highest odds to win Sixth Man of the Year before the season started. I've been saying that before the season. I really want him looking to try to contend for that spot. And right now, he is doing his thing, and he did it in this game. And he was not the only one that did his thing in this game. I'm going to talk more about certain other individuals coming up. But as for the Clippers as a team, I don't even think the Clippers played badly when they were losing, really. I think they just went cold. Marcus Morris Sr. was 3 for 13. He really struggled shooting the ball and missed a lot of shots that he normally makes. It was really that stretch in the beginning of the third quarter where the Clippers kind of started going down. It was 61-53 at half. The Clippers weren't doing a good job closing out quarters in the first half, but it was really that beginning of the third quarter where you saw Anthony Simons really start to get hot. You saw Jeremy Grant really start to hit shots. And what happened was when the Clippers went cold, the Blazers were really getting out in transition and running and getting a lot of easy baskets. Justice Winslow, Josh Hart, Anthony Simons, Jeremy Grant. It's a pretty athletic team right there besides Yusuf Nurkic. And they took an 18-point lead over the Clippers. But I think when Simons and Jeremy Grant went out of the game, they just naturally cooled down. You had the Blazers lack depth. And even though they've shown to have better depth than people expected this season, they're not the deepest team in the league. That Shadon Sharp guy is good, but they got a grand total of 6 points from guys not named Shadon Sharp who had 5 points. Nasir Little with 1, Watford with 3, and Drew Eubanks with only 2. So they're really reliant on their starters. Now, granted, when Damian Lillard plays, then they have Justice Winslow coming off the bench. And Justice Winslow had 10 points and 13 rebounds. And I'm really happy for Justice Winslow. I actually really liked him on the Clippers. I think he started his Clipper career out, even though it only lasted half a season. But he started it out very poorly. But before he got traded, he really started to play well and was really impressing me with his defense and being a threat as a pick and roll threat on the roll. And Justice Winslow is starting right now without Damian Lillard. And I do think that when they get Gary Payton Jr. back, it will help definitely their depth a little bit. But when Simons and Jeremy Grant went to the bench, they started cooling down, and the Clippers just naturally started making shots, and the momentum started to shift. And I always talk about it on this podcast, but basketball is the biggest momentum sport, in my opinion, that there is. The Clippers rode their momentum. Marcus Morris Sr., despite not having a good shooting night, made a big shot late in the game. But it was really the Norman Powell show offensively for the Clippers. He absolutely took over. But coming up, I'm going to talk about 2 key contributors that have not played too much this season. In one's case, not much at all, and why they really turned this game around on the defensive end. Going to be talking about who those guys are coming up. One time I had a friend, and every time we get in the car together after playing basketball, you could not avoid his stinky, sweaty smell. What he really needed was some sweat block. And that's actually how he fixed his problem. Sweat block gives you the confidence to wear what you want without embarrassing sweat, even if it's after a athletic event. Sweat block wipes were featured and tested on the Rachel Ray Show by firefighters. If you or someone you love is experiencing embarrassing sweater odor like my friend, try Sweat Block. Save 20% with the promo code LOCKEDON at sweatblock.com. Also available on Amazon. Thanks for making Locked On Clippers your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Clipper Nation, we back. And with a huge comeback victory, again, the Clippers winning it 118-112 at the Moda Center, but I, in my heart, will always call it the Rose Garden. And in this game, the Clippers were down 30-25 after one, and I thought overall they weren't even playing badly. I just wanted to see them hanging the game, and maybe they could steal it at the end, and that's not really how it went. But I thought Reggie Jackson and Ivica Zubac did a good job starting out the game. I thought Reggie hit a couple of shots, a couple of floaters, doing a good job taking what the defense was giving him when he was running pick and rolls with Zoo. And Zoo was doing the same, finishing around the basket, had 6 points in the first quarter. And I thought that when you really start to see the very talented Anthony Simons start to get off and start to get hot, it was when Terrence Mann came out of the game. Now the Clippers started Amir Coffey and Terrence Mann again alongside the usual suspects of Reggie, Zoo, and Marcus Morris. Reminder, John Wall did not play because of the back-to-back against the Utah Jazz on Wednesday night. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George will also miss that game. But the Clippers were thinner, and Amir Coffey and Terrence Mann starting. I love, you guys have heard me talk about how much I love their athleticism and what they give us in that way on the break. And what I really like about them as well is their ability to attack closeouts and get all the way to the basket. With Luke Kennard, Nico, Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, these guys usually, when they get run off the three-point line, they step into a mid-range or make an extra pass. But Amir Coffey and Terrence Mann, when they get run off the three, they're looking to attack and attack hard. And I really like that about them. Norman Powell, you can kind of put into that category as well. He was doing a lot of that in this game. But Terrence Mann was guarding Simons, and I thought he was doing a pretty good job. But when he came out of the game with 3 minutes to go in that first quarter, Anthony Simons scored 11 points from that point on to the end of the first quarter. And that's what kind of gave the Blazers that 30-25 lead. But 5 points down, Nurkic and Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant playing well, no big deal. I thought the second quarter, I talked about one of the guys that made a huge difference for the Clippers in this game. And the Clippers in this game went 11 deep, and one of the guys that played, it's not the guy I'm going to talk about, but one of the guys that played for the first time you saw really get real minutes in an NBA game, and not just in preseason, was Jason Preston. He only played 6 minutes. He shot 1 3 where Yusuf Nurkic was backing off a lot and giving him a lot of space, and he buried it. So congratulations to Jason Preston scoring his first points of his NBA career, his first NBA field goal. 3 points for him in the game. Only played 6 minutes and was 1 for 1. Got 1 assist as well. But for the most part, it was Norman Powell, Nico Batum, and Robert Covington off the bench. Yes, sir. He was one of the 2 players I'm going to talk about at length in this segment about him and what he did for the Clips in this game. We haven't seen Robert Covington much of late. He's just kind of been kept out of the lineup by other players playing well, especially guys like Amir Coffey. But in this game, he reminded everybody why he was viewed as such an important piece, or going to be such an important piece for this Clipper team. He knocked down his threes, and he hasn't really been knocking down his threes like that this season. He was 3 for 4 from deep in the game, 6 for 8 from the field. There were a couple nice cuts that he had off the ball, and he was found for layups and a nice dunk while Damian Lillard was actually getting interviewed by the TNT broadcast. It was pretty funny. He was like, "Nice dunk, Rocco," or something like that, or "Okay, Rocco." But Robert Covington not only did that, he also was good and active in the passing lanes, and I thought that he actually played the best defense on Jeremy Grant, using his length and size to kind of affect his shots. So Robert Covington showed the two-way impact that you were expecting of him going into this season. Right now he is shooting 42% from deep. I think that may have changed after the game on Tuesday night, because I don't remember him shooting over 40% from 3 before that game. But it's good to see Rocco have a good game, a very good game. 15 points and 4 rebounds for him, plus 10 in his plus minus in just 18 minutes of play. Thought he was really good, especially in that second quarter. And, with small ball, when it was Reggie Jackson alongside 4 wing players, Amir, Terrence, Batum, and Rocco actually looked decent. So again, when we go to that small ball unit, with Zoo out of the game, I don't like it with Reggie and Norman Powell. Even though I like, if Reggie and Norman are shooting the ball well and playing well offensively, they can kind of outscore certain bad teams, but there are certain good teams that are going to make you pay for that lack of size, especially when Zubac is out of the game. And in the second quarter, late in the second quarter, I thought the Clippers did not do a very good job closing quarters. Jeremy Grant started to get going. And honestly, I don't think that Marcus Morris, who was the one guarding him most of the time, was doing much wrong. I think Jeremy Grant was just making really tough shots, and those shots started to miss later on in the game. I thought he still played really well, Jeremy Grant, and he shot a good percentage, 12 for 24 from the field, 5 for 11 from 3, 32 points. He was pretty amazing before he fouled out, which really changed the last couple of minutes. But I don't think there was anything Marcus Morris Sr. was really doing wrong. I think Jeremy Grant's just a tough shot maker, and Marcus Morris was just off. But I also think one of the reasons the Clippers kind of fell behind and trailed by 6 or 8 going into half was because they had 10 turnovers in the first half, and a couple of those were Norman Powell, like in the pick and roll, just kind of getting stuck under the basket and being indecisive and like jump passing. Terrence Mann had 2 turnovers as well. One was him jump passing. But the great part about the Clippers, and one of the biggest reasons that they won, is that in the second half, they only turned the ball over 3 times. So taking care of the ball has been a huge theme for the Clippers this season of why they've lost certain games, and taking care of the ball in the second half was a huge reason why they turned it around. So remember, got to take care of the ball at any level of basketball. Even when I coached kids at my local park, I would always say, taking care of the ball. Turnovers are going to kill the game for us. Let other teams get out in transition and take advantage. And that's how the Clippers kind of started falling behind in the third quarter, and it wasn't really many turnovers. A lot of it was just good misses. Marcus Morris not hitting shots. Amir Coffey was 0 for 2 from 3 in this game, and both of them were good looks. Reggie Jackson got a ton of good looks, and I think he was shooting the right shots, just missing. And in this early third quarter stretch, when the Clippers were missing, I thought the Blazers did a really good job of getting out in transition with Winslow, with Grant, and making the Clippers pay. And you saw the Clippers go down 18 points. And part of the reason that was because they were struggling guarding Anthony Simons. When there were plays, not many of them, but some, where guys didn't do a good enough job getting over the screen with Simons, Zubac was dropping too deep for me. And he got burned a couple of times. So eventually in the second half, they started hedging that screen. So Zubac was coming up, meeting Simons at the ball and putting 2 on him. But the problem is when your center leaves his man, you have to have a guy rotating to that center that's going to deter him a little bit. And a lot of times when you play these smaller lineups, those guys rotating to 7-footers under the basket are 6'7", 6'5" guys. And that was kind of hurting the Clippers, so I could see Zubac's hesitancy at times to step all the way out. But I thought guys there was one time like Norman Powell, for example, rotated to Nurkic, deterred him, and he forced him to miss. So that's one of the many defensive plays I thought that Norman Powell did a good job with in this game. And literally, it was Reggie Jackson was the player that slowed down the run mainly. But the guy that really changed the game in the fourth quarter, oh my God. This was as satisfying a moment for me because I've been wrong about a lot of things so far this season, guys, or Clipper Nation. But this one I was right about. We've been talking about the backup big thing from the beginning. And I've been saying for the longest time, we have a backup big. His name is Musa Diabate. He moves his feet extremely well like we saw in preseason. He's a good rim protector and he's athletic. Let's see him against NBA competition. And funny enough, this was the team that he played in that preseason game, the Portland Trailblazers. And maybe that was part of the reason why Ty Lue threw him in. Mind you, Moses Brown actually played 3 minutes in this game. He had 0 points and it just was short-lived. Put Zubac back in the game, but when they put Musa Diabate in this game in the fourth quarter, he played the entire quarter and he changed the entire game. As I said, the Clippers won the fourth quarter 36-17, which means that Musa Diabate was plus 19 in his 12 minutes, and the reason why was because he did such an amazing job guarding everyone. And that is what I saw in preseason. This guy's moving his feet at 6'9", 6'10", with a 7-foot wingspan, 1 through 5, protecting the rim, getting rebounds. He had a nice putback, was drawing loose ball fouls because of his activity on the offensive glass. Just a huge difference. Got a huge block late on Anthony Simons. He was phenomenal. He was 1 for 1. 3 points, 4 rebounds, a steal and a block, no turnovers, and plus 19 in 12 minutes. Totally changed the game. So happy for him. But without one player, there is no way the Clippers would have sustained that run and prevented it from going down 20 points. Gonna be giving him his flowers coming up. So we all know how ExpressVPN protects your privacy and security online, right? But here's something you might not know. You can also use ExpressVPN to unlock movies and shows that are only available in other countries. Maybe you run out of stuff to watch on Netflix. This will change your entire world. ExpressVPN allows you to binge The Office on UK Netflix. It's so simple to do. Just sign into Netflix, fire up the ExpressVPN app, change your location to the UK, refresh Netflix, and that's it. ExpressVPN lets you control where you want sites to think you're located. You can choose from almost 100 different countries, so just imagine all the Netflix libraries you can go through. Love Korean dramas? Use ExpressVPN to watch Parasite off South Korean Netflix with your Netflix subscription. ExpressVPN to watch shows because it's ridiculously fast. There's never any buffering or lag, and you can stream it in HD, no problem. It works on all your devices, phones, media consoles, smart TVs, and more. So if you want to get access to hundreds of new shows, go to expressvpn.com/lockedon right now, and you can get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. That's expressvpn.com/lockedon, expressvpn.com/lockedon to learn more. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, so I talked about many things so far. The amazing performance by Norman Powell, a cold shooting night for Marcus Morris Sr., but he still made a big shot late in the game. The amazing performance of Musa Diabate and Robert Covington. But there are a couple unsung heroes I got to talk about as well. And one of those is Nico Batum. Played big minutes in that fourth quarter. Made a huge three, even though he was 1 for 3 from three. But he made one that counted, actually one that gave the Clippers the lead. And also, when I said there was a block by Musa Diabate on Anthony Simons, there was one right after. And it was Nico Batum playing great defense. I'm pretty sure he had 2 blocks in this game, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, he did. 2 blocks, 3 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 0 turnovers, plus 22 in his minutes. That was the highest plus minus of any player in the entire game. Does that mean he was the best player in the game? No, it doesn't. But he was a positive. Damn right he was. Nico starting to look like the Nico Batum that Clipper fans are used to seeing. Just such a connector. Communicates on defense, makes timely plays. And that go-ahead 3 was big time, and the consecutive blocks on Anthony Simons were big time. And I think that the Clippers, they increased their defensive intensity in that second half, especially in that fourth quarter. But I think a lot of it was just Musa being in the game and the Blazers just missing shots. I think that they were making tough shots, Simons and Jeremy Grant, a lot of tough jumpers. And I think that they just slowed down. Law of averages kind of came back. And the funny part is, I say law of averages, they still shot really well, Portland. They were 47% from the field and 48.6% from 3. And really, 27 of those 35 threes were shot by Grant and Simons, and they were 14 for 27 between the two of them from distance, which is unbelievable. But they just started cooling down, and I want to give a huge shout out to this man, again, with a huge performance, Reggie Jackson. This guy was the reason the Clippers didn't go down 20 points. He made timely shots. He was aggressive going to the basket. I love when Reggie's not settling. He did still shoot a lot of jumpers, but I think they were in rhythm and he had a lot of space to shoot them. But he was getting to the rim. He was hitting his floater coming off screens, taking the mid-range when it was there. And he made big shots later in that third quarter that prevented the Clippers from going down 20-plus points because it was 73-91, and Reggie had 13 points in the third quarter. 2 threes as well in those, just huge shots, and you need those shots to stop the bleeding. A lot of times you need stars to make those shots. In this game for the Clippers, it was Reggie Jackson. And I also think Reggie Jackson did a hell of a job of finding open guys. I don't think he created a ton of open looks, but he did a good job of finding the open guy when they were open for just a split second, not dilly-dallying on the ball too much. And I love when Reggie Jackson's just looking to spread the wealth. He did such a great job of that, and even though some of his assists were generously given, he had 12 of them. 12 of them to go along with 7 rebounds, and he only turned the ball over 3 times. So a 4-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, unbelievable for Reggie Jackson. 24, 7, and 12 is an all-star kind of stat line and a real all-around point guard kind of stat line. He was awesome, and the way he found Norman Powell in transition so many times led to a lot of buckets in the fourth quarter. And Norman Powell Just so many huge shots. Tied the game with a left corner three in front of the Clipper bench. Gave the Clippers the lead. And when the biggest play of all the plays, though, was when Reggie Jackson took a charge with just under 4 minutes to play, when the Blazers had just regained a 5-point lead. That play got Jeremy Grant fouled out of the game. And from that point forward, the Clippers knew that they just had to limit Anthony Simons, and they would be home free. Norman Powell made that corner three right after that charge, which tied the game at 108. And even though the Clippers went down 110 to 108, it's Reggie Jackson finding Nico Batum for the go-ahead three to put the Clippers up 111 to 110. And then Marcus Morris Sr., after he went up high for a rebound that he probably wouldn't have gotten last season, made a 17-footer, a classic Marcus Morris in-your-face jump shot to put the Clippers up three. And then Norman Powell put the Clippers up 115 to 112 with a nice driving layup with 1 minute and 23 seconds left to answer back a Josh Hart bucket. And then, of course, the 2 blocks and a clutch free throw by Norman and 2 clutch free throws by Reggie sealed the win for the Clippers, 118 to 112. You've got to love the resiliency of this Clipper team. And now Ty Lue's got some decisions to make because Musa Diabate, there is a spot for this guy. There is a spot for this guy in this team, and I would love if he played in this Utah game as well. This is our 3rd matchup with the Utah Jazz. We're 1-1 against them this season. This is the first time playing them in Utah, and it's one of the toughest places to play in the league. I would not be surprised if the Clippers lost, but hey, why not? John Wall back. Reggie Jackson, I'm pretty sure, was listed as questionable, and same with Norman Powell. Let me honestly check on that right now. Because, even though it's mid-episode, I want to give you guys the latest and greatest while I can. But that would be tough if the Clippers don't have Norman Powell or Reggie Jackson, especially after the performances they put up. So let's see. As of an hour ago, Reggie Jackson is listed as questionable with a low back contusion, and Norman Powell doubtful with the left groin strain. Kawhi Paul and Luke Kennard out. So I don't know. We've seen crazier things, Clipper Nation. Help for a big Terrence Mann game. And I thought Terrence Mann, by the way, I thought he played really well in this game as well against Portland. So fingers crossed. Clippers move on to 13-9. Won 5 of their last 7 games. So things are looking up. Let's see how they do against Utah. It's not going to be an easy game. The main thing we want to hear as Clipper fans is Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. When are they coming back? Hopefully they come back soon. But that's it for me today, Clipper Nation. So remember, comment on today's pin question. Was that the best win of the season? And thank you for making Locked On Clippers your first listen today. You know what you got to do. Check out Locked On Sports Today. The age-old proverb, go Clippers. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimesDropperPod. And subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dimes Dropper. Peace out.